Hi there, my name is Dr. George Gonzalez. I'm here with a very close friend of mine, Dr. David Pascal. He's my first student, my first quantum neurologist, and he's here today to share some exciting stories and experiences he's had over this last year. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm very good, George. Thank you for having me. Always welcome the opportunity to get to spend time with you and talk about our various adventures in the world of quantum neurology.
Absolutely. Now, you used to come out to Los Angeles. We're in Los Angeles right now. You used to come out once a month and we see each other all the time, but your schedule's shifted and we don't see each other as much, so it's nice to get together and be able to share this with everybody. So, you know, as we talked before we started filming, we just want to talk about your experiences over the last year. You've had tremendous results with athletes as well as other patients with severe disabilities. But right now we're going to focus on the athletes. So,
great.
Why don't you just give us a summary of what's happened over the last year for you?
Sure. So I'm a chiropractor, and this is actually the beginning of my 26th year treating patients. I didn't know if you knew that. Yeah.
Congratulations.
So thank you. This month, so I'm excited. And of course, for the last 12 years, I have had the blessing of getting to practice quantum neurology. And a big part of my practice is working with professional track and field athletes. So I travel on the world circuit, and the athletes are my patients. So if you are, for those of you that don't know, if you're an elite athlete and you actually have your top 10 in the world, you have a chance at winning a world championship medal or a medal in the Olympic Games, then you usually have your own personal medical provider. And so although USA Track and Field or the US OC have great chiropractors that work with the athletes, and they can see those athletes at no charge, I work with a number of athletes, and they pay me to travel with them and take care of them, either for performance enhancement or injury prevention, or to recover quicker if something does happen and they get hurt. So this past summer, of course, in London, for anyone that was in a cave and happened to miss it, we had a beautiful summer games, and I was able to go there, and I actually had 16 of my athletes compete in London.
Incredible. Incredible. And of those 16, how many of them brought back medals? Or how many medals came out?
Yeah, they came home, almost everyone came home with a medal. I didn't do that calculation, but they came home with 5 gold medals, 3 bronze, 5 gold, 4 silver, and 5 bronze, is that right? I'm sorry, it's a blur now. They came home with a lot of medals. I guess I should know the exact number. I've been very fortunate. You know, if you look at all the medals the U.S. has won over the last 3 Olympic Games, and in between the Olympic Games, they have World Track and Field Championships. If you look at all those medals the U.S. has won in track and field, a little over 25% of those medals were the athletes that I treated. So that's a lot of medals.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And you know, it's a common question a lot of doctors ask is how do you get into the sports field and things like that, and you have a lot of experience because you're a champion athlete yourself. So that got you, one, to understand the sport. You know all the players, all the coaches, and all those kind of things. So can you talk about the experience that you have with track and field in your own right, as well as how that applies to bring it to the professional level?
Well, as you mentioned, I ran track and field, so I ran in high school, I ran at UCLA, I raced internationally for the United States. And so I have a deep love, in particular, for track and field. But I've been lucky. I've worked at the World Gymnastics Championships, the Women's Pro Beach Volleyball Tour, the PGA. So NFL players. So I've done a lot of sports, but track and field is my love, because that's what I did. And so as I started treating athletes, then because of the successes of the work that we do, I was just grew larger and larger and larger, and so typically at like this last summer at the trials, the championships to select the U.S. team for London, I had 32 athletes there.
Right.
And so I came at it, I mean, it's a long road, but for someone coming up, it's very clear exactly what to do. You know, after you graduate and you have your degree in chiropractic, then of course you want to become a quantum neurologist so that you can
That's right.
do that even more advanced work, which we'll talk about those advantages in a sec. But then you need to become a certified chiropractic sports physician. So that's about 100 hours of coursework to learn all about typical sports injury management and working with a team of other doctors. Once you do that, then you are allowed to work, then they integrate you into the system in a very slow process. Maybe you work at a local track meet, and then you can go and work on some juniors, so that would be 19 and under. And then you can be one of the 30 or 40 chiropractors that are selected to provide care, like at a national championship. They'll select 40 doctors, they can come, and they just hang around in the medical tent in shifts. So any athlete walks over, he goes, hey, can you treat me before I go out and run, or jump or vault or whatever it is.
Right.
And so then that doctor will take care of that athlete. Probably never saw them before in their lives, you know, but right there, they're going to provide that care. Then after you've done that, maybe you can be selected to a junior national team, and then a professional team, maybe like a dual meet between the U.S. and Great Britain. And then you might get selected as one of the medical staff for a world championship, you know, juniors first and then seniors. And then finally, if you're one of those few people, then the U.S. Olympic Committee selects you, and then you can become an official chiropractor for the U.S. team. And this year there were two great chiropractors that were selected and were in London. But I don't go that route. You know, my athletes that I work with, they're my patients, just like your patients are your patients. So I like to work with an athlete for as long as possible, hopefully throughout their entire career, and take them from when they come out of college and they're already performing well, and do my own part of their support team to bring them up to that level where they're a world-class athlete, and know that I help to contribute a little bit more. Right.
Absolutely wonderful. And what's amazing, and for those of you that may not be experienced in the elite athletic performance field, Dr. Pascal is a superstar in that field. And you know, I've had the good fortune of being friends with him, and he's invited me to come and help during these events, and to see the level of athletes, the top athletes in the world are his patients. And you know, I'm the assistant at that point because he's the doctor, of course, and so I'm doing my best to help as an assistant in those situations, and just in awe of this scenario. You know, it's very rare for doctors to get into these positions to begin with, and not only to be in these positions with Dave, but to work with the absolute top athletes in the world. It's awesome. It's awesome.
It truly is. I don't think there's anything else like it. And it's just very rarefied air, and to get to help contribute, you know, and in any situation, sometimes your contribution is small and sometimes it's big. It's not every day where an athlete comes up and goes, I have to race in an hour and I'm injured and I'm going to have to pull out if you can't help me. You know, that doesn't happen very often, thank goodness.
But that did happen this year with the pole vaulter.
Yeah, actually with a couple different athletes. And if you just give me a sec, then I will be glad to go down that road. But you know, most of the time you have a great athlete and they're in great shape, and all those top athletes are so close together in ability, but quantum neurology it brings something different to the table. It upregulates the nervous system. It brings the athletes, even the ones that are apparently perfect, into a higher state. And I believe, and my athletes believe as well, that one of the major factors that helps them is quantum neurology, because all those athletes are so close together, and if you can even be half of 1% better,
Right.
then that quite often makes all the difference. And
Well, we're both familiar with, and I think most people are familiar with what traditional therapy is on athletes. Okay, you injure your knee, and it's called RICE. Rest,
ice, compression, elevation,
right?
right?
And that's traditional concepts. And in quantum neurology, we don't, we'll use those a little bit, but it's definitely not our focus on helping somebody. So could you explain for somebody who doesn't have that experience, that they may be familiar with the traditional way, what would you do that's different with quantum neurology?
Sure. This is where it gets difficult, or it gets complicated, because it's like if we were to get into a time machine and go back 150 years to the age of the horse, and someone would ask you, well, how long does it take for you to go from Los Angeles to San Francisco? And, for us, in 2013, we'd say, well, it takes about 7 hours.
Right.
But to say that to someone 150 years ago, they'd go, no, don't you mean 7 days because you're on a horse?
Right.
And to explain to them, no, actually it's hours, not days, even the most brilliant minds of the time couldn't have difficulty wrapping their mind around the possible, that's even possible.
Right.
And that's where we are as quantum neurologists, is that the technique that you've developed is so advanced, hopefully in only 50 years ago, oh yeah, QN, that's, everyone gets treated at that speed. But now it's very hard for people to understand. So we will see people where they go, wow, there's no way you're going to be able to compete. There's no way this is going to heal in time, or it's going to take, weeks or months for you to recover, and we're getting them better in a matter of hours.
Right.
And a great example is this past winter, in track and field, you have an indoor season during the winter when it's cold, and then an outdoor season in the spring and summer. So last winter, we had an indoor circuit, and then that led to a national championship, and then the top 2 people that qualified at the national championship then made the U.S. team to go to Istanbul to compete in the World Indoor Track and Field Championship. So that's a pretty big deal.
Right.
And one of my athletes that I've worked with for years, Aries Merritt, phenomenal hurdler, but he hasn't been in that top 2 or 3, he's been in that next group of 3rd to 6th. But but as you train and the years go by, you get better and better, and he's done that, and he went into this last indoor season, and everything was working perfectly. He was winning races, and we go to the U.S. Championship, and he was co-favorite to win a national title, and so he had to race 3 times in 2 days. So 1 race on Saturday, and then 2 races on Sunday. So he did his first race on Saturday, he qualified for the semifinal, and I said, okay, we'll see you tomorrow. The next day came, and he was going to have 2 races 2 hours apart. A semifinal and then a final. So I worked on him before the semifinal. I said, all right, Aries, we're only going to have a very short turnaround here. Rest for an hour, and then come back to me an hour before the final, and we'll do our work. So I have a number of athletes at the championship, so I'm working. I can't really pay attention to the athlete. I never get to see them race because I'm always working on the next athlete. Right. One of the only downside of working with a large number of people, So I've got 25 or so people there. And so Aries goes off, and I'm sure he's going to make the final. I don't even think about it. Well, about an hour later, I wanted to go get some food. I had a short little break, so I'm walking as fast as I can, through the stadium to go get some food. And I see Aries just sitting on a chair by himself. So I'm like sprinting by, like, hey Aries, I'll see you in an hour. Because I had heard from someone else that he made the final, so I'm like, okay. And he goes, no you won't. And I literally just stopped him like, what do you mean? He goes, oh, I sprained my ankle. And I guess what happened is in indoor hurdles, they're going 60 meters. I believe there's 5 hurdles, might be 6. And anyways, on the last hurdle, when he came off of it, he rolled his ankle, had a grade 2 sprain, and he came across the finish line, and they interviewed him right there on the track, and they said, hey, great, you just won the semifinal, we're going to see you in 2 hours for the final. He goes, no, I'm not going to run. I sprained my ankle. In fact, I can barely stand. And he hopped off, and there he was sitting on the chair when I walked by.
Wow.
Right. I had no idea. I said, why are you sitting there? Why didn't you come to my table? He goes, well, why would I do that? I can't run. I said, you don't know me, you don't or quantum neurology well enough, apparently, even though we worked together all these years. So I helped him over to my table, and so now we only have an hour before the final, and he's got to be in the top 2 to qualify for the World Championship. And of course, this is a chance to win a national title. He's never won a national championship. Well, I have quantum neurology, so I treated him through our various protocols, and as I'm treating him, the pain's going down, the swelling's going down, the strength is increasing, and time's going tick, tick, tick. And finally, we get to the point where he can actually walk pain-free. And then he could jog pain-free. And then he could go over some hurdles very carefully pain-free. And then just before he went out to run in the final, he actually could go full speed pain-free.
Wow.
It was a miracle.
That's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, it was all happening right there,
Yeah.
And this is one of those rare opportunities where that clock is going tick, 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 and you got to get him better and do everything you can. So he goes out and he runs a race. He wins his first national championship.
Wow.
Which meant he got to, not only is he national champion, but he qualifies for the World Championships. He goes 2 weeks later to Istanbul, destroys the world record holder,
wow,
destroys everybody, and wins his first world championship. So he went from nothing, from not even going to be able to run, even though he put in all the work, even though he's a tremendous talent.
Right.
He's got a phenomenal coach, a great support staff, and everyone together worked to get him to that point. Because of a freak accident, it was all going to be gone.
Wow.
But because of quantum neurology, he was able to get in the blocks. And since he was able to get in the blocks, he was able to manifest that talent and hard work, and he was able to win a U.S. title and then go on and win his first world title. And that was phenomenal.
Incredible. I love it. I love it.
But that's not the end of his story.
Really?
In the entire history of the world, he runs the 110 hurdles, and
that's the one side of the track.
Right. That's basically the length of a football field plus the one end zone, and they've got to jump over 10 hurdles that are 42 inches high. Very high. Very high. Right. And they are flying, in all of history, only a few people have run under 13 seconds. And one person had run under 13 seconds 6 times in one season, and that was the world record holder. Well, last year, Aries ran under 13 seconds 10 times. Wow. Phenomenal. And part of that was we were at the trials, and they select the team for London, and he won the Olympic trials and ran sub 13 there. He, we all go to London, and he destroyed one of the greatest fields in history and won the gold medal. And about 3 weeks later, he totally shattered the world record in the hurdles.
Incredible.
Absolutely, absolutely incredible. And it was very exciting for me as the third athlete that I've worked with that while they were under my care, they went on to set a world record. So it was an honor and exciting, and it all started, who knows if he hadn't been able to run that indoor race, you know, because of his ankle, what the rest of the season would have looked like, you know, because the confidence that he got from his first national title, from his first world championship, you know, certainly supported his season. So that was just a joy to get to
Absolutely.
to take part in.
Incredible, incredible. That's just a powerful story. I love your stories, Dave.
Thank you.
Know, you need to write a book with all these different stories because there's so many of them. Would you mind talking about the pole vaulter?
Sure. Usually when I go into a championship situation, whether it's a world championship or a national championship or whatever, I have my set athletes. They're the athletes I've been working with all season long, usually year after year after year. But every once in a while, someone will come up to me and say, hey, I have a problem. I've already seen the team docs. Would you help me? Or sometimes the medical staff sends them to me. You know, I don't solicit athletes. If they solicit my help, then if we can work it out, we can. So now we're at the trials, and about halfway through, I get a call from someone on the U.S. staff that said they had an athlete there that was injured, and would I be willing to see them? And it just worked out that I had a break in my schedule right then. I had 32 athletes, which is a lot for one person to manage, because I usually treat those athletes 3 times a day. So,
wow.
Yes. So 3 times a day, every day that they're competing, that's a lot of work for one person. But as fate would have it, I had this little window, so I said, send him over. So the person that came over, his name is Derek Miles. And Derek is, at that time, he'd been on 2 Olympic teams. He'd been on 5 world championship teams, and he had won a gold medal at the world championships. So he was one of the greatest pole vaulters in U.S. history.
Right.
And what had happened was that he had gone into the medical tent and went up to a trainer and said, hey, would you tape up my leg, my lower leg, because it hurts. And so she said, yeah, sure, of course. So as she's taping him, she just happened to say, so how are you doing? And he said, you really want to know how I'm doing? You know, there's like a social, hey, how you doing? Or like, you really want to know? And she said, no, I really want to know. He said, well, between you and I, 2 months ago, I got injured. I hurt my Achilles tendon, and I can't run. I haven't run for 2 months. I've been getting care every single day, acupuncture, physical therapy, chiropractic. You know, we're doing every type of therapy that can be done to get me ready so that I can try to make this team. And I've tried to run 4 different times, just some strides, and I can't even run a stride. And he said, if I can't stride, I can't sprint, and if I can't sprint down a pole vault runway and jump. And therefore, what I'm planning on doing after you finish taping up my leg, actually just between you and I, is I'm going to take my pole and go over to the runway. You know, it's an off time right now, and just do my own little private ceremony and lay my pole down on the side of the runway. I've had a great career, but it's over now, and I'm just going to retire.
Wow.
Yeah. And so she said, wow, you know, that's really a story. Are you willing to try one more thing? And he's like, yeah, of course. So that's when she picked up the cell phone and called me.
Wow.
So he comes over. I'd seen him around, of course, great athlete, but I'd never worked with him in the past. And he gave me the details of what was going on, and I said, well, how long do we have? Because in the vault, they take like the top 40 athletes from around the country, they're invited to the trials, and they have a semifinal. So everyone gets to vault, and the top 12, they then get to come back for the finals, and then the top 3 make the team. So I said, how long do we have until your first round? He said 2.5 days. Like, okay, well, we better get started, you know. So we're doing our thing.
Better than the hour that you got with
Yeah, better. Oh, wow, we had a lot more time than we had with Aries. This would be a piece of cake. Yeah. I mean, he had such pain in his in the muscles, well, actually on his Achilles tendon, that the pressure that you would put on your eyeball if your eyelid was shut, that was a 10.
Wow.
That's how much pain he had. He had severely inflamed that Achilles tendon. It had already had 2 months of rest and 2 months of care, and even after 2 months of rest, it was that painful.
Wow.
So we're not talking about like it happened an hour ago.
Yeah.
It already happened 2 months ago, and even with 2 months of rest and healing, eyeball pressure 10.
Wow. Now, just this is one of your specialties, is that soleus cascade. Was that involved with this?
Yeah. So you know, usually, fortunately, yes. He happened to have an injury that I'm
the top expert in the world in.
Yes. Thank you.
That's the truth.
And this will demonstrate that because, you know, he hurt the tendon, but there's muscles around that tendon and that influence that tendon. And I developed a technique to assess that injury and accelerate its repair. So we worked on him for 2.5 days, and each day, each hour, he got better and better and better. And just before he went out to vault in the semifinal, 2.5 days later, I could squeeze on that tendon, and it was a 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's big. 80% improvement.
9.
Yeah.
You know, from that's a 10 to that's a 2.
Big.
Tremendous, big.
Bigger than.
And so I said, "Good luck." You know? Good. Now it's your turn.
Right.
So then I'm treating my athletes and trying to keep track of what's going on, but you know, we got other people that are trying to make the team too.
Right.
So he comes back over about 3 hours later. I said, "So Derek, how'd it go?" He said, "I ran completely pain-free."
Wow.
And I qualified for the finals.
Incredible. Incredible.
But now I'm all flared up again. I'm like,
but from
right,
retiring to making the next heat.
right, to qualify for the finals. So I said,
incredible.
It truly was. So I said, okay, now what? How much time do we have? He said, well, we have another 2.5 days.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to work. So we worked on it for another 2.5 days, and then that moment came where he said, okay, I've done everything that I can with the time that I've been given. Our time is up. Go make that Olympic team. You know, gave him a big hug, and he went off, and you know, we're trying again to keep track. How's he doing? This and that, and he came back a couple hours later, and he made his 3rd Olympic team.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
That was phenomenal. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So, you know, sometimes you don't really play any role at all. You're just having to, it didn't matter if they saw you or saw the mailman.
Right.
You know, they didn't really have any issues, and, you know, so what? And other times, you know, without a shadow of a doubt, that you made a huge contribution to that person. And in Derek's case, you know, I'm proud to say that definitely we made a huge contribution. So that was an honor to get to do that.
That is so awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Now we haven't talked about Brian Fraser in a little while, but of the stories you tell me, he's one of the favorite people I love hearing about.
Yeah.
You know, he's just such an inspiration. Would you mind talking about him?
Sure.
I know he wasn't involved with the last games, right?
Brian Fraser is a Paralympian. He has his own phenomenal story. He was a good sprinter at North Carolina State University, and there's a train that goes through the campus, and on its way, through North Carolina, and it slows down when it goes through campus, and he said that some of the kids, his buddies, they would run and jump onto the train and climb in a boxcar and go down to the next town, 100 miles away, and then spend the day there messing around, and then the next train coming back, they'd hop on that and come back, and they just did that all the time, goofing around. One day, he's running to hop up on the train, and he slips and falls and goes under the train.
Whew.
And the wheels amputated half of one foot, and got him mid-calf and on the other foot,
Right.
on the other leg. So that's not good.
Yeah.
He's fortunate that he didn't die. And a lot of people in that situation, when you're so young and you have your whole life ahead of you and all of a sudden it looks like you have no life, may choose to end their lives, or may choose to turn to drugs or alcohol and just throw everything away. That's a very common and sad thing. But Brian didn't do that. He used that as a motivator. He said, all right, I mean, obviously in the beginning he went through a rough time, but he refocused and said, this is what I got, now what can I do with it?
Right.
This is what I have, what can I do with it? Instead of many of us go, this is what I have, now I have nothing.
Right.
So what he did was train hard, really, really hard, and he became a great para-Olympian. After every Olympics, there's immediately following is the Paralympics.
Right.
And he competed, and now it was either 4 teams or 5 teams. And in Beijing, that was his last Paralympic Games, and he was actually selected by his teammates to be the flag bearer in the opening ceremonies, which, there's only one,
Right.
and he was the one. So he set countless world records in the 100, the 200, the long jump over the years on the relays. He was selected U.S. team captain, and won a ton of medals,
Yeah.
a ton. And he is just a phenomenal person. He works for a company that makes these prosthetics, and so he can help others. The main group of people that he works with are all the returning vets,
Wow.
that have lost limbs in these wars. And he's the one that goes, hey, I'm in the same boat, I was in the same boat, and let's look at what we have and what we can do. And
Right.
so the inspiration that he must be for all these vets, I mean, who could calculate that? So
Incredible.
I was fortunate to get to work with him, and one of my favorite stories about Brian is before Athens, I had a large group of athletes that were all training at NC State on the track there, and it was very hot. In North Carolina, it can get really hot, and this one day it was like 105, and everyone's dying out there, and they do a sprint, and then they go and lay on the grass, and recover for 20 minutes and get up and go do another one. And this one guy, excuse me, the whole time he's complaining, oh, it's so hot, oh, I'm so tired, oh, I can't believe how hot it is, oh, this is horrible, oh, and just going on and on and on. He's just not stopping. Every interval he does, but all the rest, he's just blah, 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 blah. So Brian got sick of it, and so the guy was sitting on the grass, and he said, oh, I can't believe how hard this is, da, 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 da. And Brian walks by, and he looks at him, and he goes, yeah, it is. And you ought to try it with just one leg. Bam, so...
Puts things in perspective.
Puts things in perspective, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, love Brian Fraser.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
And are there any other stories that you want to share about
Well, I
Because
mean,
you have so many, you know, you've brought so many champions to, from people who desire to be champions, and, you know, just falling short of what's necessary, then taking them all the way to the
yeah,
goal.
I've been very fortunate, and like you said, there are countless stories, and hard to tell those stories without getting emotionally involved because they're just so inspirational.
Absolutely.
And in London, we had another one of those moments where I've been working with an athlete. He actually called me 2 years ago or sent me an email, and he said, "Dr. Pascal, I know you're this guy on the circuit, and I want to be a great athlete, and would you be willing to work with me?" It was so nice, you know, and he was just graduating from college, you know, and I said, "Absolutely, come to my office. I'd be glad to take a look at you and give you some advice and bring you on to the people that I work with." So I started working with him, and he's a tremendous person, tremendous athlete, and worked with him in 2012, and then 2013. He's getting better and better, and we go to the trials, and he's a 400-meter runner, Manny Mitchell. And in that race, what you have to do is the top 3 make the team, but there's also a relay where 4 people run, this 4x4 relay. So 4 people, each person runs 1 lap, and they have a baton they hand off.
Right.
And so they take the top 6 people at the championships, and they make a relay pool. And then those are the people that then get to go to the World Championships or the Summer Games, and then they select 4 to run. So he didn't make it in the individual 400, but I believe he placed 5th, and so he made the relay pool. So we go to London, he marches in opening ceremonies, he's training hard, he's looking phenomenal, he's been at relay camp, the coaches are really impressed with him, and they go, "You're going to be one of our 4 for sure." And he comes to me 2 days before he's supposed to race, and he says, "Hey, my leg feels a little funny. It feels fine walking around, but it feels a little funny when I'm sprinting really hard. You know, would you work on it?" So I took a look at it. We did vibration tests, all this stuff. Everything looked fine at that point. We treat him. He's completely pain-free. And after I treat him, he goes out and he runs full speed, completely pain-free. Then, that was 2 days before. Then the day before, he comes and he says the same thing. "I'm fine at rest. I'm fine walking around. When I sprint real hard, I feel something." Again, I look at him. Everything looks intact. He saw one of the MDs on the medical staff. We thought everything looked good. Put him, you know, vibration, everything. He's fine. So, and again, when I treat him, then he goes and sprints. He's pain-free. So that's great. So then I treated him before he goes out to run, and in the relay they have a semifinal and then a final. So he's running the lead-off leg for the U.S. in the semifinal. We must place in the top 3 to make the final. The U.S. always wins the gold medal in the men's 4x4 relay. We are dominant. We've won, I think the last time we didn't was like in 1968 or 72. Right. It's been years and years and years. So Manny gets in the blocks, the gun goes off, he takes off, he goes flying around the curve, he's down the back stretch, he's looking great, and all of a sudden he starts slowing down. And slowing down and slowing down. And everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, what's going on?" You know, and he ends up handing off like in 5th place instead of 1st place.
Right.
Well, the rest of the athletes, his teammates, made up the difference, and we qualified for the finals, which was great. But everyone was pretty upset that he ran so poor. And he limps off to the side and says, "Hey, I'm in really bad pain. Maybe something happened." And here's what happened. What he didn't tell me was the reason his leg hurt was he fell in a staircase in the village, the athlete's village, and slammed his leg against a concrete step.
Wow.
And when he got into the starting blocks, he was fine, but the first 100 meters, around the curve, he started to feel a tingle. And down the backstretch, the tingle became a little more painful, and right at the 200-meter mark, halfway around the track, he heard a loud snap, followed by excruciating leg pain.
Wow.
And what had happened is he broke his leg.
Wow.
His distal fibula.
And he still ran faster than I could have.
But then almost anyone in the world could have.
Absolutely.
He still ran like 46 seconds.
Wow.
But he knew that in spite of that pain, that he had to get that stick around.
Right.
Because if he didn't finish the race, then the U.S. is disqualified.
Right.
And we don't have a chance to win a gold medal. And we have a legacy in this event. So he didn't focus on his pain, he focused on his task. And he got that baton around fast enough. He got it around fast enough. And then it came out that he had broke his leg. And he was, many writers said that, including Sports Illustrated, said it wasn't Usain Bolt, the Olympic champion in the 100 and the 200, that was the hero of the games, but Manny Mitchell.
Wow.
And even Bolt sought him out for his autograph. And, you know, to get to work with a kid like that, that's special.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Amazing.
Not a quantum neurology story, but a testament to a great person who put in a great effort.
I love it. Now, you know, I think we should just continue on and talk about the other types of cases you see, because, you know, the other end of the spectrum of the skill that you have is working with severely disabled people. And of course, everybody in between. You know, we all have the typical pain patients and things like that. But you've really developed and honed the skills of elevating anybody's nervous system, regardless. And it's the same techniques that are used on the elite athletes that are used on the disabled patients.
That's absolutely true. And I think if we end here and let them hear it in the next video, that will follow in 1 minute, then they can watch that one as well.
That's perfect. We'll take a break right now and we'll start up in a minute.